Premier, I just wanted to say, first off, on behalf of myself, Stellar, and I think everyone in this room, thank you so much for having us here. Already the hospitality has been amazing, the fish even better, and I'm looking forward to the rest of this conference, so thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, and for all of you joining us here this morning in Bermuda, rain, blow, or shine, welcome.
Fantastic. Okay, so I want to get down to brass tacks with you a little bit. So, Premier, for all the new visitors to Bermuda, everyone here today, give us just kind of the 60-second pitch of how did we get here? Like, how is a 21 square mile island in the Atlantic leading the world in digital finance?
Well, what is interesting is that, of course, Bermuda is the home of insurance. And I remember coming into office in 2017. I wasn't orange-pilled. I wasn't crazy about, Bitcoin and all those other types of things. And I remember one of my first meetings was actually on a beach, and it was with Stan Stonecker of Hub Culture. And he had said, oh, there's an opportunity here. A few months, he kept on talking to me. Other people were saying things. And the conversation back in 2017 was that blockchain will kill everything. There will be no insurance companies. There will be no accountants, there'll be no this, there'll be no that. And from a long-term economic vision and policy perspective, if your economy, as Bermuda is an international financial services center, is based on insurance, accounting, et cetera, that represents a long-term problem. And so we actually went into this purely from a defensive perspective to say that if our insurance companies are operating here, if other companies in the financial services space are operating here, we need to make sure that they are able to innovate on island so they can grow on island and not go to other jurisdictions where they'll be able to innovate. And so that is what started our journey in 2017. We put together a task force. We started getting educated. We started traveling, learning about these particular items. I remember we went to the World Economic Forum in 2018, met some people there. On a famous time, a former minister had a drink or two and decided to just invite everyone to Bermuda in the next week. We were completely unprepared. We didn't have anything set up and or ready, but people came flocking, and the rest, as they say, is history. We put out the Digital Asset Business Act in 2018, and the best digital asset regulator on the planet, the Bermuda Monetary Authority, has been regulating this industry ever since.
That's phenomenal. And by the way, I know with those two drinks, I'm assuming one of them must have been a Paloma with a sugar rim. As I understand that's a drink of choice.
No. Back then I was, still on vodka. That's a different story. There's the evolution. But I know that without question, I see you laughing over there. Keep that to yourself. So Stellar has certainly been doing the serious work in deploying blockchain infrastructure in sovereign context for years. This is the first time that we have Stellar, and I'm grateful that you are sponsoring the Digital Finance Forum. Tell us what is important to Stellar Development Foundation and why Bermuda and why now?
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know, Stellar is a network that was purpose-built for regulated finance. And I think we have been really focusing on this over the course of the last 12 years. The design of the network was really focusing on being able to first make sure that you can transmit a payment anywhere in the world at as low cost as possible, while making sure that we built in all the right features into the set to make institutional issuers and others very, very comfortable with the network. That goes from things like asset tokenization features, the ability to freeze, claw back, all of these things on the network that really make it super viable and valuable, particularly as we start engaging with institutions, but also regulators across the board. And so what I think has been really powerful is, that has allowed us to be the first in a lot of different things that have, I think, a lot of relation. We're the first network to work on deploying a universal basic income solution, which we did in the Marshall Islands. We were the first blockchain to work with the first regulated money market fund through our friends here at Franklin Templeton on Stellar as well. We've worked with the German government, we've worked with the United Nations, we've worked with the World Bank on deploying a lot of different payment structures that required all of that, and so that's really been the key. But what's so fascinating to me about Bermuda, and really just a tremendous job to you and everyone here, is this is where I see the convergence of the technology, the regulation, and the politics, which makes this just a phenomenal place to start thinking about what's next as it relates to digital finance. So again, we are so excited to be here with you. And I'd say, maybe on that note, I had the opportunity to watch you last week at Consensus in Miami. It was very hot. I was very sweaty, and you did an incredible job. And I just, I watched you announce a couple of legislative updates that the government is planning to make to further this digital finance vision. And I'm really curious, like, what do those announcements, what do they actually mean for the island?
Well, I think it's important. If you're going to be a leader in digital finance globally, you also have to demonstrate adoption here at home and make sure that the government is playing its own particular part. And so a couple of weeks ago, the cabinet had passed a number of, approved a number of proposals that I did announce a consensus and happy to share today. The first is that though we've been speaking about it and getting it, we've developed the framework going through all of the risk assessments which are necessary and required, as Bermuda is a well-regulated jurisdiction, to get us to the point and place where we can give official announcement that is now official government policy that the government of Bermuda can accept digital assets and also invest in digital assets. In addition to that, okay. You like that? All right, I like it too. In addition to that, we are going to also set up our, modify our FinTech Development Fund, which was set up in 2018. And that is going to allow for partners such as Stellar and others to support Bermuda's on-chain economy vision. So of course, a government needs to have clear regulation, clear legal laws, and we're going to amend the FinTech Development Fund Act to be able to accept digital assets so other persons can go ahead and invest. And why is that important? It is important because we want to make sure that we can provide support for entrepreneurs here at home, for companies that are started in Bermuda, for companies that want to be a part of this ecosystem, so we can go ahead and give grants and development and capital for them to go ahead and start. So we've set up all of those structures, and now we're going to be legislating that. So intention is to make sure we legislate that before the end of the summer, just like how we announced the Digital Asset Business Act in 2018, and we're able to table it a few months later. That is the intention on this. So I'm very excited. In addition to that, in order to go ahead and to accept these digital assets, we need to make sure that the government is done and we've completed all of the necessary due diligence and risk assessments to process with a Circle Mint account. And this will serve as the government's first digital consolidated account where digital assets can be received and managed. There's an initial pilot throughout the Transport Control Department. We're currently working through this initiative, but the intent is very simple. We want to lead and demonstrate with an on-chain economy as to how governments can process digital assets, how you can use those digital assets to invest and save. And when I say with the government to invest in digital assets, people are like, oh my gosh, the government's going to invest in Bitcoin. No, if we have an investment committee who will do it, but the government right now invests in money market funds, but there would be a question as to whether or not they can invest in tokenized money market funds. We want to make sure that we are demonstrating the value of digital finance, and the government is going to take the leadership position to make sure that we go ahead and get that done. And so, so from that perspective, it's been a long journey. It's been a long journey. And I mean, we've been speaking about this for a while, but though the government reviews quickly, they're also making sure that we get it right, get the risk assessments right, make sure that everything is done so that when we bring this to legislation, it continues to make sure that Bermuda is a well-regarded jurisdiction. We just got a ratings upgrade last week and everything else. We want to make sure that we stay on top of mind with all the ratings agencies. They know that Bermuda continues to be a well-regulated jurisdiction and is thinking thoughtfully about these things, not just rushing into them, but saying this is how we're going to do it and this is how we're going to do it right. But as you said, we're thrilled to have you here. Yep. So the question is, what announcements may you have to share with this room? Well, I know what you're going to say, but I just want everyone else to hear what you're going to say.
Yeah, I think that is just the perfect layup for me. And we at Stellar are just thrilled to share that Bermuda's national economy is going to move on-chain on the Stellar network, making Stellar the network of choice for the world's first fully on-chain national economy. It's amazing to say those words. I mean, really phenomenal. I think the confluence of what you have done, meeting the moment, I think the network that is really designed for this is really special. And so it's so fantastic to be here with all of these folks and have the opportunity to, again, speak with you on stage about this. I think what's really exciting is to make that tangible. In the future, what does it mean for Bermudians? It means that they'll be using digital dollars as part of their everyday financial lives. And practically speaking, you'll be able to actually receive wages, make merchant payments, settle government fees, and save and invest through digital wallets all on Stellar. And most importantly, one of the critical elements I think we identified on the Stellar network was this idea of just the last mile, which I think many of you guys might be familiar with. But this is actually the idea of being able to turn a digital asset into something that is available in the local economy. And through our deep network of partnerships, to be able to actually enable kind of digital asset to fiat off-ramping through partners like MoneyGram will actually enable that right here in Bermuda. And I couldn't be more thrilled for us to actually do a demonstration of that on Thursday so that folks can actually see the application of a digital wallet, receiving digital dollars, and then off-ramping in the economy. And so really phenomenal and excited to be here and announce this on stage with you.
Excellent. Well, I mean, from our perspective, this is, without exciting, a digital Bermuda dollar. And I think it's important that we set the context because this is not something that is going to be issued by the government of Bermuda. The government of Bermuda is not in the business of issuing digital currency. We have set up a regulatory regime, and it's been the government's policy from the very beginning that we want the private sector to lead. And so when we talk about private sector issued stablecoins, Stellar working alongside with Circle to go ahead and issue private sector stablecoins, bringing forth, there'll be further announcements around a digital version of the Bermuda dollar, but this represents the future. And the reality is this is not the government, it's the private sector leading, working in concert with the government of Bermuda to go ahead and support this ecosystem here on island. And you are correct, because the benefits that it does have, as you say, the last mile, I see the team for the Bermuda Economic Development Corporation over there, partners in this initiative, have been going door to door with vendors in the community, making sure that they go ahead and get signed up and registered. And yes, so when we're talking about the access that Bermudians will have that they don't have, you know, with merchants saving on transaction fees, enhanced savings and rewards for those monies to automatically be invested. We swept, I remember last year with the, you know, our fully compliant airdrop that we did last year. I was at a meeting the other day and someone was talking about the yield. Yes, you can say that in this country, by the way. There's other countries you may not be able to say that, but this one you can. But the yield that is earned is still accumulating inside of their digital wallets. And this is the reality. This is the future. Digital finance is going to change the way in which the world works, and it is important that we demonstrate what that means to persons here. In addition, as you said, improve financial access for persons to have access to these products. The promise of digital finance has always been that it democratizes financial access, but a lot of that stuff goes over people's heads. But you know, Bermuda's a sophisticated international finance jurisdiction. We all know what sophisticated investors are, and there's some products that, you know, if you don't have $100,000, you don't have access to those products. But of course, with tokenization, with democratization of financial access, you can have that with just $20 and be a part of that with a lower level of friction. That is the promise. That is what we're delivering here. But also what's important from a government perspective is that we can then go ahead and deliver those dollars and the monies of which we use. So we put out financial assistance payments, we put out payments to vendors, we put out payments to support for persons inside the economy. If you're able to do those, if you're able to use programmable money to do that, you can broaden the amount of merchants that you can do it. So right now, with the assistance payments in which we give, they're only accepted at 2 major supermarkets. But if there's vendors who are receiving these digital dollars that can then be able to use them at different places because they're programmable money, then it broadens I guess I would say the entrepreneurs that have access to those services and brings it closer. So that is what we're looking to do. And I'm very excited to be working along with Stellar on this particular matter.
Yeah, and I wanted to hone in on this one specific point, which is really you've been pushing this private sector innovation here, which I think is phenomenal. And I think you just were talking to this, but why the private sector is so important to this digital vision. Obviously, we're working with a number of different partners here and pulling them all together. And you have made such a critical investment in ensuring private sector comes in. Like, can you maybe hone in just a little bit tighter on, like, what is the reason that you think private sector is important for Bermuda?
Well, I think from the perspective of when it comes, so governments, I'm going to get in trouble saying this, especially I'm on my way to a cabinet meeting. Governments are not always the best when it comes to implementation. Mm-hmm. And what you don't want to find yourself, in technology lock-in. You don't want to go ahead and take on that risk. And I remember, early, pre-pandemic, I view everything, before and after, but pre-pandemic, there was a view and a vision that, Bermuda would, issue digital currency, et cetera. And there were persons who said, wait, don't do that. Give it time for the private sector. And that's the reality. You don't always have to be first. We're not going to come here and say we're the first. No, we're not. But we are the country that is going to do it right and to demonstrate that this can be led from the private sector side. Because there are real concerns that people have when it comes to, digital currencies, about security, about privacy, about those type of items. And if those things are being done in the private sector with choice under a regulated environment, and the government is basically saying that if you are regulated by the best digital asset regulator on the planet, the Bermuda Monetary Authority, to issue your stable coins. We know that they're backed, we know they're verified, and we are happy to accept those, and you're able to use those transactions or those currencies inside of our particular market to transact. I think that is important, and so we're going to support the digital Bermuda dollar from the very beginning, and as I said, we're going to find a way to use that to go ahead and distribute, to disperse government services. You talk about the fact of the universal basic income in Marshall Islands. That was one of the things that I was very excited at the World Economic Forum when we first met, and I said, okay, this is good because you've done it before, and so we're happy to have partners that are coming online with a vision of which we're trying to press forward here in Bermuda. So that in itself is exciting.
That's great.
It is. So here's my question for you. You see, I've got my cards. I'm all lined up. So we know this, but what does Stellar bring to the table? Why do people care that Stellar is here? People are like, why are these two guys up here on stage? Why should Bermudians who are in the audience care about Stellar being here?
Yeah, and I think we were starting to allude to this, and again, thank you so much for having us here. I think when we met at the World Economic Forum, I think there was just a real tight vision alignment, and the reality is we have a track record that has demonstrated the ability to deliver these capabilities at scale in real world applications. And I think that has been the thing that we have very much focused on, which is Stellar is a network that is purpose built for everyday financial services. Everything that you've seen over the last dozen years around Stellar has been how do we actually go ahead and deliver real usable digital assets that actually help uplift and bring, I think, the capabilities to people who are going to take advantage of it. And so there's a lot of space for a lot of different types of things in the broader, let's call it, crypto industry. When we think about what we're trying to affect people being able to leverage, dollar-based savings accounts to offset currency or inflation volatility risks that we've seen in many parts of Latin America. I think that was one of the initial primary use cases. We've worked with a lot of these different aid agencies for delivering aid into different places. And I don't want to confuse the idea that Stellar has worked with aid to be that Stellar is an aid-based blockchain. No, actually, I think what we've tried to demonstrate is that in the most difficult to reach payment, Stellar can be able to deliver that at a cost that is 0.0001 cent per transaction with settlement that is 3 seconds at a global scale. I mean, you're effectively looking at the most efficient payment architecture, and I think that's what we really focused on. Coupled with over the last dozen years, we've had effectively 4 5 nines of uptime. And so when we have an opportunity to communicate with folks like yourself, institutions at scale, I think the ability to deliver infrastructure that is stable, scalable, and has that track record is absolutely critical. And this is the type of solution that was really important when we were talking to some of the different governments. So the Marshall Islands, I think, is a public example of something we recently launched, which was the design of a universal basic income solution to be able to deliver to a distributed set of people across, I think the Marshall Islands has something like 1,200 total islands where people live on. And if you collapse all of those regions together, it would be the size of Washington, D.C., but it's distributed over the size of Mexico. So imagine being able to get dollars between each of those different domiciles. And that would have been impossible but for the innovations that we've seen that we support on the Stellar blockchain. And so I think these are the types of track records and experiences that have been super valuable. I've mentioned some of the key areas that we've seen a lot of growth in, but we have just shown and demonstrated explosive growth, particularly over the last year. Last year, Stellar had about $55 billion in total payment volume on the network. In Q1, stablecoin payment volume has grown 72%. So a lot of trajectory there. Real world assets tokenized on Stellar has effectively 3x'd over the last quarter. So we're at $2.5 billion of it. And so I think what we're seeing now is a lot of recognition for this type of stable infrastructure, and it's starting to scale. And what I'm really excited about working with you guys on is being able to have Bermuda be able to tap into that global network and really be able to extend that capability of a digital asset that is generated from Bermuda, and the implication of that, I think, not just within Bermuda, but also as it connects into kind of global trade, which I think is very, very exciting. So, I would love to maybe talk a little bit about the announcement of this digital Bermuda dollar. I think this is one thing. Getting it into the hands of people to actually use is another challenge. How do you think about addressing that sort of problem?
Well, the only way you do it is by consistent education, and it goes back to the things which I said before. This is not going to happen overnight. You know, people have their credit cards work fine. People have their cash, they like their cash. The reality is it's going to take a while for people to realize that, oh, I don't have to pay the transaction fee. Oh, this is going to happen a lot quicker. Oh, this goes. I hearken back to one of the things I said at Consensus. Do any of you, well, some of you, I'll talk about the older people. People are as old as me or older. Do any of you, yeah, I'm an old guy now. Yeah, I used to be young.
You look great. You look fantastic.
Thank you, thank you. Anyone over the age of 50 remember the feeling the first time they sent and received an email? I literally remember the first time I sent and received an email, and I was like, oh my gosh, because I used to write letters. Like, kids nowadays don't even know about writing letters and put in the post. But the reality is the change of which that represented to people was significant. And the talk about the transfer and value of which this offers is going to be significant, and it's going to take people a while. Remember, people still write letters. People still wrote letters for a long time. People still send out posts, whether email, but it's going to take a while. So I don't want this to be looked at in the frame that, oh my gosh, things have to happen right quick. And if everyone's not using a digital wallet, then it's a problem. But I also want people to recognize that this can work. And so we're going to demonstrate at scale at our vendor market tomorrow, where people can actually see, we'll see everyday Bermudians receiving digital currency, receiving digital assets, being able to use, to spend, to invest, and to understand and to get educated. And that's how it is. So one person will tell another person, will tell another person, et cetera, all the rest. So from that perspective, it is going to be good. And as I said, we're going to show in the future how we can use these tools to help and assist with government disbursement. So we're looking forward to it. And just as a note for any of the people who are checking, there is the fact that this airdrop that we're doing tomorrow is fully compliant with our local regulations. Very important, because it always is something that we have to say. So I guess I'll say we've been talking kind of long, so we're low on time. So from my perspective, what do you think is next? How do we go forward?
Yeah, well, first off, just so I will say, I'm super excited to see the airdrop and the assets actually operate. Like, it's fine to talk about this stuff. Actually seeing it operational, I think that's a whole nother story.
It's true.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I think we're super excited to help with that airdrop.
What's important.
Yeah.
The technology is getting easier.
Yes.
We can't fool ourselves as an industry that this stuff has been simple for people to use.
Yep.
It has been complex. And if it's not as simple as, sending a WhatsApp or doing something else, if people have to go through multiple different steps. So I'm sure the process this year will be better than it was last year. I'm sure the process next year will be even better as well as we continue to build and develop on this. But the important thing is that we're building and developing that here and work with partners here so people can see what takes place. And I always remind people, companies are not going to come to Bermuda to make money off of our 65,000 market. They're not. But the vision has always been that companies can innovate here. We have the best regulator on the planet, and the types of things of which they are able to do here, they cannot do anywhere else. And I think that is the value. That is what it is. And so we want to remind you, if there's something that you think about doing, you can do it here. Trust me, have a chat with the Bermuda Monetary Authority. As many of the people who are in this room right now who are sponsoring this organization, they will say they were floored and left the meeting with the Bermuda Monetary Authority looking like this. I didn't know a regulator can do that.
Amazing. And I think from my perspective, we're super excited to help support the airdrop. So for folks who are here and are going to participate, Circle is a deep partner of us for many years. We're going to help support USDC, which is their digital asset, deployed into decaf wallets, which is another partner that is here as well. And we're actually going to demonstrate the ability to accept those dollars and then actually off-ramp them into a MoneyGram location. The decaf team has also been working with local vendors. I understand that some Bermuda shorts may be available for purchase. I will say that I was not as brave as John Darcy a little earlier to actually wear those, but I'm excited to do that a little bit later. So really excited to help support that and really help, I think, meet that vision that you have articulated so well and so deeply in such a profound way. So really, really excited. And so I think with that, I'm going to leave you with one last question, which is, with all these exciting announcements, what comes next?
What comes next? So allow me to say this. When we tested that MoneyGram solution, I told you when I saw you last week in Miami, I almost cried. I was like, literally, because it's hard when it comes to on-ramping and off-ramping and different things like that. That is the one place where Bermuda has not been able, to fully, but with partners like the Bermuda Commercial Bank and others who are working to make sure that we can get these solutions done and pushing forward, and also with the partnership that Stellar has with MoneyGram and the locations here, I'm very excited for how we press ahead, because the reality is a lot of people say, oh, well, there are not, the banking making rails in Bermuda. Well, that's not true. We're developing them. We're pushing ahead with the various partners. What does the future hold? The future holds that we're going to continue to innovate. We have this Bermuda triangle of innovation where industry goes to the regulator and says we need this particular clarity. The regulator puts out its proposal to the community. The community comes back and they come to the government with legislation ready to go ahead and to advance. The Ministry of Finance reviews that and we go ahead and pass it. And there's a number of things which we're doing. So the digital Bermuda dollar is without question just the start. We know that we can use that to support our on-chain economy initiative, and we're very excited that that's happening. We speak about that, but next is around tokenized investments. It's really around that. Bermuda wants to make sure that we are the home of tokenized investments. I was telling someone last week at Consensus, they were talking about tokenized real-world assets. I said, do you know that it was possible to tokenize that real-world asset in Bermuda 8 years ago? And they looked at me, I'm like, yes. From the very beginning, the Digital Asset Business Act had that. And so we know how this works, and the message that we give to industry, the message when we travel on the road is there's no guessing games with our regulator. You're going to get an answer, and they're going to be able to design or to give you feedback to build this. And so from that particular perspective, tokenized investments are particularly important. We recognize that from Bermuda being an insurance jurisdiction, that it'll be very important from that particular perspective for the industry to understand how these digital finance can work in order to manage their balance sheets more effectively, in order to manage the reserves more effectively, in order to make those transactions as well, and possibly future becoming part of their disbursement mechanism. And then, of course, as we all know, I can't believe it, we went through an entire meeting and no one talked about AI, but I'm going to break that. Artificial intelligence and agentic finance is also happening. And one of the things the Bermuda Monetary Authority and one of the things in which the government is looking into from the innovation side is recognizing that financial services may be transacted by agents in the future. How do we look at that? How do we regulate that? How do we talk about those particular things? And so that's what an on-chain economy looks like at scale. That is what we're planning on building here in Bermuda. I'm certain that the vision is someone had asked me a question because they're like, oh my goodness, Premier, next year, how are we going to have a digital finance forum if you're not going to be here and all the rest? I said, number one, I'm not going anywhere, just so you're clear. I may not be the Premier or the Minister of Finance, but I'm not going anywhere. I'm still going to be a member of the legislature, still going to be supporting legislation that is going to advance Bermuda's digital finance interests. But the other thing is the industry is already baked in. The ecosystem is now here. We have a number of companies that are providing feedback to our regulators continuously at all time. We're continuing to make sure we advance, and that will just continue to happen. So from this particular perspective, thrilled to have Stellar as partner, thrilled to have everyone here at the Digital Finance Forum, and I sincerely hope that you enjoy the next 2 days. It is going to be incredible. Actually, sorry, not 2 days. Today, tomorrow, and Thursday as well. The next 3 days of what we have here on offer. I promise you, the weather will clear up tomorrow. These are showers of blessings today. There's many people in Bermuda who are very excited that it's raining. Very, very excited that it is raining. These are showers of blessings. But what I would say is to you, Raja, and to all the teams, I do have a closeout tomorrow, so I won't say my farewells as of yet, but it's just an absolute thrill to have you here, and welcome to Bermuda, and thank you for being a part of what we're building.
Premier, thank you so much for sharing your vision of the on-chain economy. It's amazing.